Mike, are unions ruining American beer?
Maybe. Is it a conspiracy?
Well, we're going to find out. We're going to talk about it more. But first, the booze news. In beer, LaGunitas, totally screwed.
Shovel dirt on those bitches.
So, LaGunitas, bought out by Heineken in 2020. 2010 to 2020, they were crushing it. They've been around since the 90s.
It's one of the best really good IPAs for a long period of time.
Oh, just pioneers of the West Coast style, doing a great job. The whole counterculture thing, the kind of dropout
pothead
hippie bullshit
vibe nonsense.
Just a lot of fun, goofy ass labels. Basically stone, but for stoners.
Right.
Instead of being aggressive, they were basically aloof. They were killing it. Tony McGee got old. He sold out his business to Heineken, who opened up a Chicago branch and did a bunch of other stuff. And long story short, the success they had in the 2010s has been nothing but failures in the 2020s. To me, this is another prime example of corporate buyout gone wrong.
Who would have ever guessed that Heineken couldn't understand good beer?
Well, and it's more than good beer. And this is where I think the intersection was really important between what we've talked about and what you're interested in as a consumer, is that what the employees of the company that are still there are saying is that the corporate culture has been ruined. And that people...
Meaning that it originally wasn't a corporate culture.
Exactly.
It was a competent business that wasn't run by assholes with a bunch of nonsensical bureaucracy. It was people that got stuff done because it made sense to get stuff done.
Yes. And so what Heineken is doing is they've replaced all the executives at LaGunitas, brought in all their own shills, and have basically just corporatized the shit out of it. So the question is that can people taste soul in a product? Like, they say the recipes haven't changed, but why is it that people are noticing it's not as good?
First of all, I don't believe that. Secondly, your recipe and how you're making the product, the volume you're making it, all of that is going to have some influence on how it tastes. But I don't for a second believe that they haven't changed it. It may be, it's the same percentage of hops, but are they cheapening the hops? Probably. Are they cutting corners? That's what happens 100% of the time when you let corporate greedheads take over a product that was built on the quality of the product and the consideration for the product. It always gets undercut 100% of the time.
Yeah, you're right. It does. And they're going to lie to you about it. They're not going to say, now using cheaper ingredients. They're going to say it's the same recipes, we're just brewing it differently or at scale or whatever.
Right.
So, top brass at Heineken says, there's not a problem with the culture. All the employees just did an article on Good Beer Hunting, which if you haven't checked that out, check it out, saying basically corporate culture is ruining this brand. And Heineken responds by saying, we can help fix it. Brand refresh. That's the number one goal. That's the number one goal for 2024, brand refresh. So, Mike, the question is...
Let's bring in a really expensive ad agency, and that's going to fix it all.
So, I take it by that sarcastic response, you do not believe in the corporate refresh as a means to revitalize a brand who is dependent upon soul and culture in the first place.
I think that it is like that beloved relative you have that gets dementia and completely loses their mind. Like, it's sad, but they're already gone. And that's how I feel about LaGunitas. Shovel on the dirt, fuck them. They're now Heineken, and they can just suck it and die.
Okay, not to belabor this story for too longer, but I got one more question for you. The CEO of Shorts Brewing, who has been bought out 20% by Heineken, came out with a new quote. I'm going to read you the quote, and I want you to tell me, is he a corporate shill, or is he keeping it real? Quote, the problem with LaGunitas isn't the fact that people are saying the product sucks. It's that we've lost the consumer over COVID and we just got to get them back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. COVID destroyed everybody's taste buds.
So you're saying...
No, you screwed up the beer. You cheapened the beer and you destroyed the culture because you're a greedhead corporate fuck. So fuck you and fuck LaGunitas. Die.
Anyway,
on to wine.
prominent wine reviewer and author of the Wine Bible, has declared war on heavy wine bottles. Mike.
My God, it's time to take a stand.
I know that you have strong wrists. However, does your wife worry at all about picking up heavy wine bottles?
She all the time has to have me. She asks me to come. It doesn't, it depends on the wine. But sometimes, we'll get a bottle of wine. She's like, oh my God, I'm a girl. I'm too weak to pick this bottle of wine up. No, I don't. Like, some wine bottles, they do have that, like, deep reservoir end and they're thicker, but
Punt.
I didn't know
That's
it was like a
punt.
thing. A punt? Mm-hmm. I didn't even know there was a name for it. I didn't know it was a thing. Like, how many bottles are doing that?
I don't know. Apparently, it's a non-zero amount of numbers, and the author of the Wine Bible has come out and basically said, I refuse to review any more wines that come in overly heavy bottles because you don't need to do that. And she claims that, one, it's bad for the environment because it costs more to ship it, and that's increasing global carbon emissions. And two, it's a factor of male patriarchy horse shit because they started doing it in the 90s because it was a dick swinging contest where, like, big heavy bottle means big expensive good wine. And obviously that's fucking horse shit.
Because she really is, like, too weak to pick up a bottle of wine?
No, no.
She might need to work out, dude.
No, I think she's just saying that the reason they're in the big bottles is fucking bullshit in the first place, and that it's time we stop supporting it, and she's going for it. So, you in favor, or yes or no? Are you having another glass of red wine or not?
I'm not going to boycott a bottle of wine over that, but I support her really arcane. Sure, I'm with you, lady.
Okay.
What's her name?
I didn't write it down because I didn't want to call her out.
Lady, I'm with you. Wine Bible lady.
Mike, there was an ad in the UK that got banned promoting Jack Daniels. Can you guess why?
Children?
Good guess, but no. The ads got banned in the UK promoting Jack Daniels because they said that Jack Daniels was the cure to boredom.
Well,
Getting drunk makes you not bored. True or false?
it's true, actually. I mean, I don't know that we have regulations here in the United States. You can't say anything false or misleading, which is interpreted very broadly. And so it will mean, like, for example, if you make it in any way sound like you're going to perform better in a sports activity if you're drinking beer, or that
That's
alcohol...
not where I thought you would take a performance-based increase, not in sports, but I get it.
Right. Well, but like if alcohol is going to make you healthier or something like that, you can't do that. But, I used to have this friend in college. He drank Schaefer all the time. Schaefer's tagline was the beer to have when you're having more than one. And he always called beer entertainment in a can. He had a point. I mean, I don't think that it is false or misleading to say that Jack Daniels will make you less bored. It's not going to make you smarter. It's not going to make you healthier. It may make you make some bad decisions, but you're definitely 100% going to be less bored.
Well, what we also learned in a prior episode of Barstool's Perspective, which you can check out on our YouTube channel, which you're watching now, is that beer also doesn't make you more attractive. It just makes you care less. That you're
Lowers your standards.
Yeah. It doesn't make that other person hotter. Yeah. You just care less.
Right. So it does, in fact, make life more fun. Good for you? No. Healthy? Definitely not. Will it make you less bored? Will it make you...
Mike, I have breaking news. This just came in through my email. It's from the UK. It says you're banned.
Oh, my God.
You're fucking banned, Mike. Stay out.
Shit.
Wendy's. Yes. The place that sells hamburgers.
Baconator, baby.
They are testing out something we've seen in the bar world lately. It's the gimmick called surge pricing. Now, we've seen it in bars before where they kind of do like the stock market bar. Maybe you have one in your hometown. We've been to one here locally.
We had a couple here. They both went out of business.
It's not quite the same, but basically Wendy's is saying surge pricing is coming. Our fear is, one, they weren't lying, even though they backtracked everything they said. But two, the problem is, does this get picked up by corporate bars and restaurants, and are we going to have to fight surge pricing at your local spot?
First of all, let's back up. So when we have seen surge pricing in a couple of local bars, it's been douchey, but kind of fun in the sense that, like, when people are ordering more of a certain type of beer, it drives the price of that up, or drink, drives the price of that up, but it will drive other ones down. So, like, if a bunch of douchebags walk into a bar and like 4 of them say, well, you know, we're a drinking club with a running problem, and they all think that it's like the smartest thing that they ever just came up with.
And they all order Mick Ultra.
And they all order Mick Ultra. Then the price of Mick Ultra goes way up, and the price of a good beer goes down. So great, you know, screw you if you're an idiot, but I'll drink the shit that, you know, I'll pick the best beer from whatever's low priced. What I'm hearing you say about Wendy's is different. That's more like Uber or airline pricing, where it's not, they're just dickishly raising prices when people tend to eat.
Yes. With no discounts. That's the key. With the stock market thing at that bar, prices go up, but other prices go down. Everything
you can choose to buy high or buy
Yes.
low, switch it up.
At Wendy's, you're not going to get a choice. It's just going to go up, and they're going to just say, fuck you. The dollar menu is the $10 menu now.
Fuck you, Wendy's. And I really hope, I mean, if you really want to kill the restaurant industry, I realize Wendy's isn't a restaurant, but if you really want to kill the restaurant industry,
that's it.
Start doing that. You know,
when you don't know what you're going to get into.
Let Applebee's start doing that, and you can just go fuck yourself and burn it all down.
Yeah, if I don't know what price I'm going to pay when I go to a restaurant, I'm out.
No.
I'm out entirely. The whole game's done.
Yeah.
Sponsor break.
Brett, I hear that you use the best malt in the world.
Well, you know what, Mike?
Yeah.
That's true. That's actually entirely true. We use Malt Europe, malt and grain for all of our beers here at Urban Artifact. Every single award-winning, nationally recognized, and internationally award-winning beer. Yes, we make that good of beer with Malt Europe grain. Uses Malt Europe malt. It's a great price, great customer service, delivered quickly in the silos or bags or however the hell you want it. Our brewers love it.
I love them.
The good thing about malt, you know, is that you take it and you mix it with water and you pull all that sweet water out and you ferment it and you get beer, and that gets you drunk. And that's why we love Malt Europe grain, because it gets you drunk.
And they even do homebrew.
They do
batches,
homebrew
right?
scale. Yep.
Yeah.
They have. It's just the best malt. Great selection. Good stuff. If you're curious, leave us a comment. We can get you in touch with a local rep or a local homebrew store that carries Malt Europe. You won't be sad. Now, back to the main story of the week. Unions. Mike.
I only belonged to one once, temporarily.
Did you really?
Yeah. Marriott.
Oh.
Didn't work out for me. I worked at a Starbucks and I worked at Oldenburg Brewery at the same time. They were all part of the same Marriott thing. So I had to pay them a bunch of dues. And then they told me that I couldn't work for both of them at the same time. Because, you know, one of them wasn't paying me enough. So my own personal union experiences haven't been great, but I am with the now 70-some% of Americans that support unions conceptually.
So we're talking about unions because of 2 big reasons. One is Anheuser Busch, who just this week averted strike, and struck a deal with the Teamsters to stop a strike at 12 plants across the U.S.
Yeah.
They got together. The union basically said, look, you're spending a shitload of money after sales are way down. You're spending millions and millions and millions trying to revive Bud Light and giving us dick, and that's fucked. So you better start paying us better.
That's exactly what their lawyer said. It's no pleadings.
That's law talk. That's not beer law, that's beer law.
That's Latin.
And the commercials haven't even worked. The marketing spend, that's the kicker on this the Budweiser thing, which we're going to get into. The second thing that we'll talk about is Miller. And the Miller thing is a whole other side of the coin, where Budweiser came to a deal, Miller did not. So first on Budweiser. Mike, what are your opinions on the deal that the unions, the Teamsters, struck with Anheuser Busch? Do you think their argument had merit in the first place, that all this marketing spend, and do you think the $4 an hour that they won in a raise with an additional 8 over contract life is a good deal?
Well, I don't know about a good deal, but I know that at the end of the day, Actually, when you look back at loyalty around beer brands, original loyalty around beer brands was not built on advertising campaigns. It came out of the fact that, you had regions where people worked at large breweries and they made good money because they were union employees. And so they were loyal as hell to those companies because those companies took care of them. Took care of their families and they took care of their neighborhoods. Like Anheuser Busch, for all the questionable shit that it used to do, when it was an independent company, it took care of St. Louis. So those were fighting words. Anywhere around St. Louis, you didn't shit on Budweiser because they were a good corporate citizen and a lot of people owe their livelihoods to it. So I think that to the extent that you are treating your workers like human beings, it actually is good business sense long term. Beyond that, from just a general idea, those guys, I read I forget what the number is, but they put some number with a B, $1 billion, into advertising just the first quarter of 2023. And then you have that Super Bowl ad. So like 3 ads, $21 million for one goddamn event. And that ad was a piece of shit, an incomprehensible, nonsensical piece of shit.
Mike, Bud Light Genie.
It made no sense. It had no payoff. And so I think that even from just a pure greed standpoint, they would be better to treat their employees well than they would to be spending a gazillion dollars on completely ineffective ad campaigns.
Listen, I know this is about to sidetrack us a little bit, but I don't understand that either. Because the argument for greed is pay your people better and they can buy more of your shit and more people are going to like you, meaning they're going to buy more of your shit. That is the ultimate greed play. Taking care of people is the greediest thing you can do.
But it is enlightened. It's enlightened greed, and we have gotten to a point where we don't even have enlightened greed. That was Henry Ford. Henry Ford was a vile, awful human being. But Henry Ford understood that if I want to sell more cars, my employees need to be able to buy cars. They're going to be the best advertising that I have as a company is that my employees buy my cars because they can afford it and it's a good company and blah, blah, blah. So the fact that we have gotten to a point where the people at the top and concentration of money is so concentrated at this point that they don't even see that, it's fucked.
It really is. And on the flip side, so Budweiser, whether they were thinking about selfish greed or not, they came to a deal with the unions, and the union is largely happy, and they voted to ratify and all that stuff. On the other side is Miller, and there's a plant in Texas, just one so far, that has gone on strike. Leading up to the strike, Miller knew this was coming, so they had all their employees overload the inventory that they're carrying because they knew the strike was coming. So they said, fuck it, let's build inventories.
Yep.
And then when the strike was voted on and happened, they've been flying management out from other plants across the country to the Texas plant to scab and stay in hotels and run this plant, which they don't know how to run, and keep making beer while the hourly workers are out front, the brewers are out front picketing. But if you are one of the wage slaves to Miller, but making a salary instead of union, what choice do you have but to fly to fucking Texas?
Yeah, well, right. I mean, and that is a very traditional, that's a late 19th century, early 20th century model of how corporations handled strikes. And, what we're seeing is we are living in a very comparable time to then, right? Like the late 1800s was called the Gilded Age. And it really had to do with the first period of time in American history where we saw this huge separation of this huge wealth gap open up between the haves and the have-nots. And that's also when you saw the birth of the real labor movement. It's when it really started to make its first strides. And then labor ran its course and it did its thing and it made its own mistakes and it fucked up in a lot of ways. But it hit its zenith in 1950. A third of all Americans were part of the union. Third. Now it's down to around 10%, but we're also in...
And half of Americans didn't have to work in the 1950s as a result.
Right.
Single earner household incomes. You could buy a house. You could buy a car or two. You could go on vacation every year, and you could raise as many little brats as you could spit out your goddamn wife's vagina. Like, god damn it. Off of one salary.
I'm not sure the spitting part is exactly how it worked, but I get your point.
Isn't it just a synonym for queef?
Again, I think we should probably consult a woman on this, but preferably one that's had a child. But aside from the fact that the 50s, we do look back, you talk about like America being great again, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it was sexist as hell in the 50s, but that aside, gender roles aside, you could trade those off. You're hitting at an underlying thing, which is that you could afford to have half of your family unit stay at home and just take care of the house and the kids and buy groceries and shit. We can't afford to do that anymore, regardless of whether it's the woman or the man, or the woman and the woman, or the man and the man, or
however the hell. That was the most elevated gender equality arguments I have ever heard you made. That last 5 minutes, you were cooking. That was cool. Usually I can kind of bait you a little bit, but you shut that shit down and you fucking rocked it. And I think it's because it's the intersection of really what the biggest issue is in this country is not race or sex or creed or gender or any other bullshit. It's fucking money.
Socioeconomics.
It's the poor and it's the rich. And by God, the fucking rich are becoming smaller and smaller, and the poor are getting bigger. And how the fuck that we haven't ganged up yet and embraced the unions for what it's done for our country in the past and what it can do now, it's just insane.
There was this piece of shit named Jay Gould in the late 1800s that said he could get half of the working class to murder the other half of the working class. And he was right. And they proved that. And that has always been the bane of our existence. I read this book recently about the coal miner strikes in West Virginia around turn of the last century. What's crazy is that those coal mine unions, they were really militant from the beginning about racial equity. So you saw, it's a crazy thing, in like West Virginia, turn of the century, the level of racial equality was crazy. That the rich mine owners were always trying to turn white miners against black miners. They were like, fuck you. We're getting screwed the same, and we stand together arm in arm. And you're still actually seeing that with union statistics today. I mean, the labor movement
unions bring people together.
They bring people together, and they kick that bullshit, those artificial divides out. Those artificial divides, those racial divides, those gender divides, they are all about the people with the power and the money causing everybody else to fight each other so that they can fuck them all. And, I'm for it.
So if you thought...
Not the fucking them all, but the union part.
If you thought the hyperbole at the top about unions ruining American craft beer was serious, first of all, educate your dumbass self, because it's the fucking opposite. Unions make beer strong in America, and unions make America strong. So get your shit together, fucking pull up your pants, support the goddamn Teamsters, and you know what? Bud Light make you gay, but they're at least a fucking union right now, and they can't say the same about Miller. That's the news.
Yeah, I used to drink High Life, but it can go fuck itself. We love you, people.